How's it going, everybody? This is Clay. I'm walking home, going to my car. I just got off work, and I brought my camera along today, thinking, hey, just got some time, shoot the breeze, and I want to make a vid. And so today, what I mostly just want to do is just talk. One of the things that I've grown to love in the last couple years is just sharing stuff, sharing information, talking, community, on what you can do on the internet, whether that's with YouTube or with forums. But I've learned so much from other people on the internet, people I don't even know, I'm never gonna meet, but I've learned a lot. You know, whether it's about guitar or life or internet, or it doesn't even matter. So I guess that's kind of what I want to do with this. I just want to talk about gear. So yeah, I guess to start things off, I'm going to talk about amps. So you know, I frequent a couple different forums, guitar related, and a lot of people are always saying, hey, you know, what do I want to get in as an amp? Anybody suggest me what to get for an amp? And at least when I was starting off, I mean, a lot of this is just more reflecting on what I was like as a noob. But you know, when I was first getting into guitar, you know, I knew what I kind of wanted to buy as far as a guitar. I mean, I knew I liked Stratocasters, and a lot of that was because my idols all played Strats. You know, Stevie Ray, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, I thought it looked really cool. You know, so it's good to go there, and I got myself a cheap Strat. So bada bing, bada boom, no big deal. But then when I really started to get into it, and it was like, hey, like, all these guys who are super legit, they play tube amps. I don't know the first thing about tube amps. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. I guess the first thing is you gotta think about what you want your amp to do. You know, whether you're talking to, you know, somebody who's a pro or somebody who's a beginner, you have to think about what sort of situation you want to play this amp in. I mean, if you're going to be on tour, you're going to want like 100 watts because you're going to be filling out a stadium. You're probably going to want some really, you know, developed out channel switchers, and you know, depending on your set list and you're showing how much ground you got to cover. If you're in a cover band, you know, you're going to want to cover a lot of different sounds, whether that's, you know, pristine Fender cleans to really, you know, boogie dirt. I mean, you're going to want to cover a lot of ground. But, you know, if you're just a beginner and you're just starting out and you're just like, hey, I'm just going to be noodling around at home, just learning how to play, you can get by with something really simple that sounds really good. And you can get something for pretty cheap. I will say this until I die. Right now, this is the best time to be into guitar, into guitar gear. You know, a lot of guys are always looking back to the 50s and 60s, and I know that's when a lot of the most iconic stuff was made. But right now is the best time to be in gear. I mean, there is more really, really good stuff out there for really, really cheap than ever before. And I mean, at home, I have a $200 rig, 200 bucks. I have $100 into an SX Furion Telecaster copy and $100 into an Epiphone Valve Junior. And seriously, plugging straight into that, it sounds really good. I mean, it sounds very, very good. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna, it won't cover all the ground I need to cover when I'm playing at worship at church. That's mostly where my venue of playing. And also for some of the stuff I like to do, I like to use some pedals. But so basically, you got to think about what you want to do. And you know, there's just a couple things to be aware of. First of all, you know, if you're going to be dealing with feature set, you have to be looking at what kind of features you want. I mean, if you are a real vintage tone purist, you're probably going to want to keep it simple. You know, those classic Fender amps, like some of them just had like 3 knobs. It'd be like volume, treble, bass. You know, and some of those old Marshalls too, I mean, they'd have like a little bit more developed tone stack with treble, mid, bass, and presence, but then they'd have just like a volume. You know, those things are so simple. And just one thing to be aware of, and this is true whether it's in a guitar or on an amp, the more knobs and controls you have, I mean, all of those things, you know, impact your tone. And in some ways they cut. Just thinking about how a tube amp works, like with the circuitry, it hits the preamp tubes and that gives it a boost, and then it'll hit the tone section. And this is really, you know, a rough estimate, and it's a lot more advanced, but all the tone controls do, for the most part, tone stacks take away, they cut. You know, so when you turn your treble control down, that's cutting away from the bare signal. But if you turn it up, you're not adding anything to what's already there. You're not, you know, it's not, unless you have like an active preamp, which I've heard of some amps that do, but I mean, by and large, most amps, and even like the tone circuit on your guitar, like that's cutting frequencies. It's gonna be taking stuff away from your signal. Which is why, in some ways, I mean, like something like a Dr. Z, like that thing will only have like 2 or 3 knobs, you know, like a master and maybe a tone, or like something simple like the Fender Pro Junior. I mean, that thing sounds great. It's just got 2 knobs. You know, one of the big, I mean, a lot of people will talk about the Blues Junior versus the Pro Junior. Pro Junior has 2 knobs, volume and tone, and the Blues Junior has got like 6 or 7. I mean, it's got a full tone stack and bass and master volume. And honestly, the Pro Junior blows it out of the water. It's got a 10-inch speaker. I mean, it's cheaper. It really shouldn't, by all stretches of the imagination. It should not be better, but it is. And I would attribute part of that to the fact that it has a much more straightforward tone circuit. Now, another thing I want to talk about is speaker selection. I mean, this can be very, very important as well. You know, you want to talk about an upgrade that's often overlooked. You know, it's going to be your speaker selection. And so yeah, I guess the only thing I'm going to say about that is just be mindful. Just don't, you know, don't just take your stock speaker for granted. You know, be mindful of what you got going on. All right, so I made it back home, and one thing I want to talk about next is wattage. You know, if you're looking at a tube amp and you're looking to buy an amp, understanding wattage can be kind of helpful, and it can really, you know, narrow down some of your choices. And you know, obviously it's pretty apparent that like a 5-watt amp is not going to be as loud as a 50-watt amp. That said, it's not going to be as drastic of a change as somebody might think. I mean, if you have a single channel, like something like my Alpine Valve Junior, it all has is a master volume. And if you crank that thing up, it's seriously loud. It's very, very loud. And I have this Frenzel here, which I had with 6L6s, it's 25 watts. It really is not that much quieter if you max out both. I mean, obviously the 25 watts louder, more complex, but a 5-watt amp is not quiet. And honestly, I would not consider that practice bedroom volume levels. You know, so you're going to need to just be aware that, you know, your wattage, it's important as a factor, but, you know, getting a 5-watt tube amp is not going to be, and you're planning on cranking it up, that's not going to be a solution for home use. You may want to look into something else, you know, whether that's like a headphone solution, if you're going to play with a modeler. You know, some of the floor modelers are really, really solid. Also, there's some computer software. I've made a lot of use out of Guitar Rig. I also know Amplitube is really sweet. PV Revolver, something like that. There's other choices out there too, and I mean there is some really, really powerful stuff on computers that you can do. And also just like, I mean, I kind of run a hybrid setup at home actually. I have a tube amp with a line out, or I run the tube amp into a attenuator and use that line out. And then I run that into my computer software and I use a speaker cab simulator. And so it's kind of a little bit of a mix and match there. But like I was saying before about meeting your needs, if you're going to be playing at home and just practicing a lot, you just want something that sounds great, definitely look at getting something lower wattage. Definitely something with a master volume. You know, there's a lot of really, really great stuff out there. Ignitor, Blackstar, Blackheart, even like Fender's lower stuff is really solid. You know, there's boatloads of other manufacturers out there that make really great stuff. Jet City, I know I'm leaving out some great names, but overall, you know, just think about what you want and what you need, and then go after it from there.